everyone, it's Maddie.
And V, and today is the first clip in our NaNoWriMo week 1 vlog, although this is coming at you a little bit earlier than the start of November.
It's October 28th and we're just about to announce our novel on NaNoWriMo.org.
We decided to create a new account for our joint projects, and last year was a huge success for us, so we're really excited to go into this NaNoWriMo with a win already under our belts.
So our vlogging plans for this month are to create weekly vlogs, so there'll be 4 going up in November.
We tried vlogging NaNoWriMo once before and it didn't go great. Well, the first week was good, but then as the weeks went on, it definitely got left. Last year, we were so gutted that we didn't actually record the process just because it was so successful. Having said that, if we had had more accountability, like making videos, maybe we would have been put off from writing more. So this time we're going to try and document it, not necessarily for the internet, but for us, so that we can go back and watch this and be inspired by our own work rather than other people's.
Because sometimes it's hard just looking at a sticker chart and thinking about how much work you put into that, because they're just pretty stickers at the end of the day. But we've got loads of different tracking methods as well, and we'll do clips throughout the month showing you what these look like as they grow.
We're just trying to remind ourselves of some of the things that happened to us last year, and we've learned that we were behind for 9 days throughout the whole month,
and we were ahead for 14 days. So that's quite an interesting balance.
It looks like the end of week 3 to the beginning of week 4 is really where we fell behind the most. And then we got some crazy sudden second wind at the very end and we're just like, let's do this, which I do remember happening very strongly. So maybe we should try and set a goal of to be ahead for like more than 14 days, or maybe not talking about being ahead because it's more important to actually be on track. So maybe we should aim to only be behind for 7 days out of the month, try and stay on top of ourselves for 2 extra days.
And also we'll have to make note of when we hit the milestones of 10k, 20k, just so that then we can compare this year and see if we end up writing any quicker or slower. It's the first day of NaNoWriMo,
and so far we have written 6,900 words.
We should have just written up to 7,000 words, but we need to take a break as it's nearly 4 o'clock and we've practically been writing all day.
We stopped ourselves from getting fully ready in the morning so that we could say we got 1,000 words finished before 9 o'clock, and that definitely helped our productivity throughout the day.
And then we've had 2 other writing sessions in the day where we've probably averaged like over 1,000 words each for both of those.
At the beginning of the day we thought we were going to go really hard at word sprints and try and do what Brooke Passmore did recently, where she tried to write faster and increase how many words she could write, and we did start that, but it wasn't going very well, so we thought we needed to be a little bit more into the story before we started doing that properly, so that's going to be an experiment for later on in the month.
We haven't even got past chapter 1 yet. I don't think you have either. But it's kind of exciting because this is the first project where we've actually had long chapters to work with. Our previous NaNoWriMo, they only had like maximum 2,000 words in them, and to know that we're already both past that mark for chapter 1 is exciting.
I'm really struggling with the world building. This is the first time I've tried to write a fantasy of this high a scale, I suppose. It's a portal fantasy, so I am writing the perspective of the first fantasy-ish character that you meet. So I have a big job when it comes to describing the world, because I can't go into too much detail because there's one other POV that takes place in this fantasy setting and we have to balance it between them and not be introducing all of the things all at once.
I'm writing the uninitiated Earth Girl. This is before she's discovered the fantasy world, although I did just dive in and write the scene where she finds the portal as it is, because I felt like that would be really tricky, and so if I just started there then the rest would be easy. But now I just need to get the pacing right because she can't discover it too quickly.
I think doing this during NaNoWriMo is practically the perfect time because it stops you from going back and deleting. Like, if you just need to write a paragraph so that you're more explaining to yourself than anyone else that this is how the world works, then you can edit that later, but keep that really info-dumpy paragraph for now because it only helps word count.
We're going to go take a break now and watch Ocean's 8, which is as far from our fantasy story as we could get.
So this is my setup when I'm writing. I have this lovely mat that we bought from IKEA that my computer sits on, and then either side I have 2 candles, and this year we really wanted to create an atmosphere before we write so that as soon as we sit down at our desks the candles are on, and then we always put on some hand cream before we start writing as well, just so that we both have a sense memory, because apparently those make it really quick to get into like a mental routine. I use this one, and the subtitle for this whole sole brand is reminiscent of southern France. It says blended with essential oil of lemon and a green floral fragrance. I feel like it's quite a regal scent, which really matches with the character that I'm writing as well. This is my desktop background. It's an aesthetic mood board for the world that I am working in. This is my main character, her brother and her best friend, and then we also have her future love interest who's got a cameo at the back just there. So she's a princess, which is why we have these very regal things going on over here, but she's also at an academy, which is why we've got this like ivy window. And this one down here is just inspiration for the like setting and the backdrop of the world that she lives in.
So it's now 9 o'clock in the evening and pretty much the end of our writing day, so we've got our total word count so far.
We have written 8,615 words today.
That is insane. I mean, I know that's divided between us, but I think that's a personal best for how many words I've been able to write.
Even 4,000 is still amazing.
As you saw, we watched Ocean's 8 and we did have the option to watch a second movie and we were going to watch Coco, but then we said to ourselves that we could use the hour and 40 minutes that the film was running to write our book instead. And so that was the first instance of the month where we prioritised writing over something else that we wanted to do, and look where it got us.
Hopefully that set a good precedent for the rest of the month, and it was definitely this time that Maddie was encouraging me more to write, so I have one free pass later in the month to encourage her to write when I'm more in the mood. We had our maximum, which was 10k, and our minimum, which I think was more likely to be around 5, but we didn't really have the like, oh, where in between those two numbers would we be happy to settle. And it does creep up on you, like when you're in the 5 and the 6 and the 7, it's like, oh, this is really difficult, but then when you get to 8 and 9, it's like, I may as well just go for the next round number. Maybe we shouldn't hit 10k tonight so that we can have that reward of like, oh, we hit 10k before we went to work.
Look how many badges we've already earned today. Gosh, we already hit the 5,000 badge as well. That's so cool. It's the second day of NaNoWriMo. It's 8 o'clock in the evening and I'm in my dressing gown, which is probably going to be a reoccurring character in this vlog because I'm in pyjamas most of the time. Today is a lot harder than yesterday. I think that's just because I don't have all of the blank page energy and I'm diving into scenes that haven't been finished rather than starting new ones. And I always find it easier just to get going with something from the very beginning rather than trying to think, oh, how can I finish this, because sometimes that's the most difficult part. I didn't want to say anything, but last night, the last scene I wrote where my main character meets her most prominent secondary character, I didn't feel that happy with, and I'd written like 1,000 words of their first interaction and the conversation just wasn't flowing, and B read it and said that it wasn't what she thought it would be either and gave me some tips on how I could improve it, and I wondered whether I should, because going back and editing on only the second day of NaNoWriMo didn't seem like a very healthy habit to start the rest of the month. But I just couldn't help myself. If I knew it could be better, I just wanted to make it better. And so I spent the time before work this morning rewriting that scene. So I added as many words as I deleted and my word count ended up not moving. This evening I was just trying to finish that scene and piece it together with one I'd already written because I had it slightly out of sequence on day one. And now I think I'm ready to switch POVs. I think that will give me new energy and I'll be able to write as many words as I want to this evening so that I can hit my personal target of 1,000 words. And whilst you're here, I thought I'd tell you what my hand cream scent of choice is. It's orange blossom and vanilla. It's a really sugary, sweet smell, and even after I've washed my hands multiple times during the day, I can still smell it almost just as strongly as when I first applied it. So I'm really happy with how strong the scent is, and it's definitely unlocking something in my brain that's triggering a writing mode. So I'm pleased that already this ritual seems to have been established. So far I have written just over 1,000 words. I'm pretty pleased with this considering the minimum for each day between us is 800 words, and I'm going to try and write a little bit more, but I've been sat at my desk for the last hour, so I'll probably move on to my bed. I know that means I'll probably be working slower just because of the sleep associations. For this novel, Maddie and I are using Catty-tastic's 9-block 3-act 27 chapter breakdown. So we have a very vague like bullet point for each of those things for our 3 POV characters, and we've planned Act 1 in its entirety and then half of Act 2, and then we have just a couple of things sprinkled in Act 3 because we know the ending that we're heading towards, but otherwise like 2B is very blurry. Then we have a more detailed outline, which is the scene breakdown for the things that would contribute to the bullet points of Catty-tastic's divisions, if that makes any sense. But it's easy and takes the pressure off thinking that you have to have everything worked out to begin with, because if you know that something bad has to happen in chapter 18, then You don't have to worry about thinking specifically about what that is until you get to it in the more detailed scene planning. So it's kind of two phases, ensuring that we're still moving forward but never getting too stuck in planning that it stops us from actually doing the writing, because we essentially just ran out of time in Preptober and it was like, well, I guess we just have to start writing now.
This is our update for day 3 of NaNoWriMo, where we hit 13,600 words.
I wrote 530.
And I wrote just about 1,000 words. All of that was done before 10:30 because we had a full day at work, and then we came home and saw a local fireworks display, which was amazing but definitely ate into our word count.
We also decided on day 3 that whatever words we wrote during NaNoWriMo would be kept as part of the total word count. So anything that we delete, huge scenes, if it's just a sentence or something that we're deleting as we write, then it doesn't count. But if we write a whole scene and then decide, actually, I'd like to rewrite this, or this doesn't work anymore, then we're still going to contribute those words, because 50,000 words doesn't equal how far through the novel you are, it's how much you've actually written.
Yeah, and it didn't seem in the spirit of NaNoWriMo to be deleting hard work, so we'll keep it all until the end, and then maybe if at the end of the month we do have quite a lot of deleted words, we'll tell you what our first draft stands at and how much we got rid of.
So today is day 4 and we have the whole day off once again, but we've been taking it pretty slowly, so it's around 3 o'clock now and we're going to start writing. I've already written 400 words today and Maddie was editing this video, so now it's time to get down to business.
But we didn't get ahead for nothing, so it's kind of nice that we can take time out to do whatever we like, so we watched Treasure Planet and binged a load of Pentagon videos. Maybe we should disconnect the internet when we're trying to work.
It's nearly 4:30 and I finished my first 1 hour writing session of the day. I managed to write 1,003 words, so I'm really happy to be over that 1,000 word mark, and that's what I was aiming for. I didn't know that it would take me an hour to do, I was just kind of going until I hit it, and I was taking note of my word count at certain times. So as you can see, it wasn't really in regular intervals. There was 20 minutes, there was 4 minutes, just where I was desperate to get to the next 100, and my pace definitely slowed as I was getting further and further into the scene and wondering where I was going to come up with the words to keep it going. But I'm really pleased because I did have a vision and I got there, even though I was only getting there towards the end of my sprint and had to use all of the previous time to build up to it. I'm currently working on my second perspective of the month. This is the other fantasy character who lives a completely different life to Bees, as they're two very distinct groups. I was really excited to dive into this character because she's so different from the Earth Girl I was also writing, and I was happy that in staying with this character for a while, I've become more attached to the character I was writing previously, and I'm excited to get back into hers. So if I can keep this balance between the two of them, then I think I'll be able to keep my motivation. I was struggling a little bit with this scene because the setting is mostly a forest, and I don't know that much about trees. We recently went to a local arboretum and I made a few notes and took lots of pictures, but I haven't compiled them from my phone, so maybe that will be my next procrastination-y task, just so that then I have a better picture of what this environment looks like. There are only so many times I can use the words tree, leaves and bark in this scene before it starts sounding repetitive, so I need to think of different ways to describe it, and maybe more niche things that you would only think of if you'd actually been there. I also think I've done quite a rough job of describing the magic of this character. She's a shapeshifter, as is her entire race, but it makes for some quite intense scenes, and I really enjoy writing those since it feels so different to what I'm naturally comfortable with. On day 4, I managed to write 1,200 words exactly. That's 300 words less than what we had scheduled to write, but it's 400 words over the minimum of what I have to write every day, which is only 800 words. This writing session really seems to have solidified a pattern for me. On the odd number days, I'm always writing new scenes, and then on the even days of the month, I'm going back through those and padding in with description and more exposition of what's happening, because whilst I do have a plan for what the scenes have to be, I have never done this kind of world building, never written a fantasy like this before. The first time I write it is always the skeleton, but I'm not really considering it editing as I write because I'm not reading over the stuff I've already written, I'm only ever adding things, not taking away, so it's not harmful to my word count at all. It is meaning that my chapters, and we've talked about this before, are a lot longer than the stuff I write usually in my contemporary stories, and that's got me really worried about pacing because I'm worried that everything I'm writing is super boring, even though it is introducing new things to the world, and I am sprinkling things in that I need to make payoff worth it later on, and to plant seeds that the reader can start asking their own questions
questions too that hopefully I'll be answering in Act 2. It's just weird because my first chapter was very action-packed and there were a lot of really dynamic scenes, and then this one is more of like a sit down and deal with the consequences kind of thing. But because we have 3 POVs that we're writing from, they each obviously have their own waves of fast-paced and slow-paced things. So even though this might be a slow-paced chapter from the character I'm writing, one of the characters that Maddie's writing might have a really fast-paced thing, which is going to go either before or after. So I always want the what I'm considering boring bits to be sandwiched between something a little more exciting. I am struggling with self-doubt quite a bit whilst writing. As you can tell from these rambly clips. But I'm also trying to tell myself that this is to just get the first draft out. If the writing doesn't sound very good, then we're probably just going to end up scrapping the entire thing and starting from scratch once we finish, because then we will actually know the story, we will know the characters, because you can do as much planning as you want, but until you actually start writing in the characters' voices and feeling them for who they are and the relationships they have with other people, even though you might have some kind of idea in what you've planned on paper or in theory, that might not turn out to be the way it is in practice. So we had what we thought was a complete plan, and now we're drafting, but I think after this we're going to have to go back to the plan, adjust things on our character worksheets, and then start this whole process again.
Our total word count for the last 4 days is 15,600 and something.
It's time to compare that with what our last year's word count was by this time.
So this one is what we've written every day, and then this is our overall word count, so there's 15.7, and if we compare that to where we were this time last year, we were only at 9.6. We're 6,000 ahead of where we were last year, and last year we got to 15,000 on day 9, so we're 5 days ahead of where we were.
Looking at our calendar, there are 5 weeks. They're not all 7 days, but that means there are going to be 5 NaNoWriMo vlogs throughout the month, so look forward to those in the future. But we may have one-off full-day writing days, and we'll just do a complete vlog of that day if we plan on writing loads, and we have one planned for next week, so there are going to be 2 Nano videos for next week to enjoy.
Thank you everyone so much for watching, and we hope you have a productive NaNoWriMo if you're participating.
Make sure to let us know your achievements in the comments, and look forward to our NaNoWriMo videos in the future. We'll see you next time.